Well, welcome everyone. This is our last keynote of what's been an enormously successful Obesity Week 2017. It's my honor and privilege to introduce today's keynote speakers. And the topic today is obesity in the fifth quarter of malignancy NFL players. When you think of the NFL, you think of excellence and you think about an engine for social change. I can remember when I was a kid growing up, my heroes were NFL players. I remember seeing Tony Dorsett run for 99 yards, and I thought I could do that. A couple of plays on the football field made me change my mind. So with that being said, I think what our players and our surgeon speaker today will point out is what we need when it comes to the obesity crisis. We know that 40% of this country is now obese. We know that the people that seek care tend to be women, about 80% of the time. We have a huge unmet need in men's health. And as these players will tell you today, they grew up under an incentive to gain weight, and that incentive became a negative over time. So these players that we cheered on the field can now teach us much about how we confront this public health crisis. They can teach us about team effort. They can teach us about using a chalkboard and figuring out how to make ourselves better the next time. With that being said, these men have been champions on the field. Now they're champions in life, and I think they will serve as change agents for us as we deal with this obesity crisis and really bring attention to this. I will now take the opportunity to introduce our panel, and we will start first and foremost with my friend and colleague, Dr. Henry Buchwald. Dr. Buchwald attended Columbia and is a professor of surgery and biomedical engineering. And as anybody who knows Dr. Buchwald, he is a true pioneer and innovator in metabolic and bariatric surgery. Dr. Buchwald will come and join us. Dr. Buchwald was absolutely instrumental in getting this accomplished. It's next my honor to introduce Arthur Roberts. He goes by Archie, and he is a physician, also graduated from Columbia. He was a student athlete playing 3 sports in college, All-American baseball player, preseason Playboy All-American football quarterback. After college, he did go to Case Western for medical school, and he played with the Cleveland Browns and then went to Miami. If it weren't for Bob Greasy, he would be the quarterback who took him to a perfect season. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Archie Roberts. Yeah. And our next guest is Corey Louchiey. As he reminded me, it rhymes with Gucci. He is a decorated former NFL professional athlete, accomplished New York area business executive, noted philanthropist. He is the co-founder of First in Life, a training and development program that teaches individuals and companies across the country how to be a catalyst for positive change, much as we're seeing here today. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Corey Louchiey. And our final speaker today is an inspirational man, and that is Mr. James Thornton. He played with the USFL, Canadian Football League, NFL, as both a defensive and offensive lineman. He's lived in 15 countries, worked 8 Super Bowls, Olympic Games, 7 seasons with the NFL on Fox game newscast, and he is, in 2011, he weighed 505 pounds. Take a good look and see how he looks now. Please join me in welcoming Mr. James Thornton. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your Obesity in the Fifth Quarter panel, and I now turn it over to Dr. Buchwald. Thank you.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to see this very nice large crowd. And in case you're confused, they played football. I didn't. I want to tell you what we're all about and how we fit into the world today of trying to make people realize that obesity is a disease. And so we've titled this presentation, Obesity in the Fifth Quarter, a Malignancy in Former NFL Players. Now, we could talk about other sports, but the NFL players have a very high percentage of post-retirement obesity and all the comorbidities of that disease. And yet, we haven't had acceptance in our own country that obesity is a disease. Now, let's look at open heart surgery. My institution, where I come from, University of Minnesota, one of the leaders in open heart surgery, and it was introduced 1952-53, and as you heard, Dr. Roberts was a cardiovascular surgeon, head of the division at Boston University. It was accepted in 5 years. Everybody referred people for open heart surgery. It was an accepted discipline in medicine. Today, there are about 700,000 cases done annually, which meets about 100% of the need. Transplantation surgery. 1954, Joe Murray transplanted the first kidney between twins, won the Nobel Prize, acceptance again within a whole 2 or 3 years, certainly under 5 years. 30,000 annually done in the United States out of 120 on the waiting list, so 25% meeting the need. Bariatric surgery, it was started at my institution in 1953 by Richard Varco with the jejunal bypass. Ed Mason, who started the gastric bypass at Iowa, came from Minnesota, and it's not been accepted. Look, it goes back well over 50 years. There are 200,000 cases annually done of 78 million with a BMI over 35, and we're meeting 0.25% or 1% of the needy people receiving an organ transplant. So why have we not been accepted as a discipline? Well, one main reason is prejudice. We have prejudice in our own ranks. When I first started doing bariatric surgery, my chairman said I'm doing psychiatry with a knife. We have internists who don't believe in obesity being a disease. And we have people in all the medical specialties who really don't treat obesity. They tell the patient, go on a diet, do some exercise. The insurance companies have never been our friends. From the very beginning, they made us take extraordinary preoperative investigations, psychiatric exam. Why not a psychiatric exam for colon cancer? That's a disease. The government has not been friendly. The general population looks down at obesity, and unfortunately, our patients themselves often hate themselves and look down upon themselves as having some character defect. The second reason is cost. About 30% of our population now is obese, or define it more exactly as a BMI over 35, and it's going to 50% of the adult population if the current trend is not stopped. That being so, we as a nation certainly cannot afford to operate on everybody, and bariatric surgery is not the answer to the treatment of obesity. So what do we do to mitigate against prejudice? We have statements by reported authorities, and I'll give some of those, and we have education. Education is led by institutions such as TOS, ASMBS, and the group we represent, the Living Heart Foundation, Heart Obesity Prevention Education Program, that you're going to hear more about from Dr. Roberts. What's the mitigation against the cost of the argument cost? It costs too much. Well, obesity and most of the obesity comorbidities, like type 2 diabetes, are metabolic diseases. We have the metabolic syndrome. Bariatric surgery is metabolic surgery. And laboratory and human investigation of the metabolism of obesity and the metabolism of the comorbidities will elucidate knowledge of causation and cause. We have a human laboratory out there in the hundreds and thousands of patients who have been treated by bariatric surgery, have had remarkable changes in their hormones, GLP-1, etc., in their vagus stimulation. We have to learn what all this means, and thereby we'll be able to come back and do intelligent therapy that is not surgical and save the surgical therapy for recalcitrant obesity, or in some cases as a synergistic approach with lifestyle changes and pharmaceuticals. Landmarks, good and bad. As early as 1977, the World Health Organization said obesity is a disease. It was not till 2004, but believe it or not, Medicare acknowledged obesity as a disease. TOS felt it was obligated to make an obvious statement about its existence and said obesity is a disease in 2008. And in 2010, Obamacare put a tremendous dent in what we were trying to do. 28 states opted out of paying for bariatric surgery because it was never listed as a mandated procedure. And only in 2013, short time ago, did the AMA say obesity should be considered a chronic medical disease state. So, our program, the LHF HOPE program, the history is the Living Heart Foundation, started by Archie Roberts, has been around for 14, 15 years, affiliated with the NFLPA. The HOPE originated in an interesting incident. I was visiting professor in Tokyo at a big open forum, and I was on a program with the Nishikawa, the Hawaiian who was #1 sumo wrestler. And it was past his wrestling days. He had wrestled at 650 pounds, and he now was a svelte 300, having had bariatric surgery. And about 200 people in white coats listened to me, 100 filed out, and I said, who's going to listen to an Ishikawa? 1,000 people filed in from the street. And that got me thinking that they don't listen to me. They don't listen to all of us here in this room, but they may listen to the comparable national heroes of sumo wrestlers in Japan, namely our retired NFL football players. So the LHF has a screening program, and you'll hear more about this, and we have an outreach program. We talk at professional society presentations such as this. We talk at industry functions, annual industry meetings. We go out into the poor sections of town and talk in community centers, churches, and high schools. And we hope to someday talk to government. And we seek always partnerships with groups such as TOS, ASMBS, and ObesityWeek. Thank you. With that, I'll turn it over to Archie.
Thanks, Henry. Good job. Well, welcome. It's a great privilege for us to be here and to talk about how the NFL and its players relates to the general public. And sometimes these days it's hard to distinguish where management and the players stand relative to some of the problems supporting the flag and the national anthem. But those are aside. Moving ahead with the slides. Living Heart Foundation was established in 2001, and what it was and is a mixture of institutions, hospitals, doctors, nurses, working on a national level to help provide education, testing, and treatment plans for many groups, but in particular, the retired NFL football players. The activities that are involved are educational. One can see on this slide a group of players. I'm not sure how sharp the screen is, but if you could see the concentration and the eagerness that this group of people that may be from ages 30 to 65, how they concentrate and how they're concerned about their health and ways to improve it. We do a series of tests, some of which are shown on this slide. There's many tests that cover most areas of general health, including an evaluation of obesity, cardiovascular, neurologic, healthy lifestyle stations. But there's always time for a little fun, and while we're doing it, and this is that last picture with the red jerseys, is a group at the Detroit Super Bowl several years ago where doctors, players, and administrators come together and address significant health issues. Then came these three gentlemen on my right, and in particular, Henry. Henry established the heart obesity prevention education concept, and I'll never forget when he first called me on the phone and he mentioned that we were former Columbia University graduates and athletes, I might add. Henry was a swimmer, and I played baseball, basketball, and football, but it was his energy that started this whole HOPE program. What it amounts to is a national community outreach, as Henry had mentioned, and Corey and James were the key people that worked with us, and as you'll learn after listening to me and listening to Henry, they're much more exciting to listen to than we are. But we realize that, and it's a privilege. This is a slide that shows some old former cardiac surgeon palpating and auscultating the chest of one of the football players at one of the screening sites around the country that we go to. This shows a mixture of different tests that are done under an IRB study protocol, and these tests are standard for hospitals and practitioners. And through the years, we've published, I believe, 11 papers in peer review journals that have kind of put the tendencies and the prevalence of disease in NFL football players on the map. We've also held some boot camps, and often they were in association with Super Bowls, and these involved exercise, which is an important aspect in creating wellness and helping to control weight. Henry mentioned that for the retired players, we've kind of thought of this whole health issue as life in the fifth quarter. We remember the earlier days and the excitement of playing the game, but that period ends and we have to go on to the rest of our lives. And what we at Living Heart Foundation have been concentrating on is helping to help the retired players understand what their abnormalities are and receive the right treatment for them. This is an example of, in the early years, and I believe this was 1994, NIOSH got involved in saying, well, maybe with the help of the NFL Players Association, we should begin to look at abnormalities in health and try to understand what comes about related to playing football at an early age and then at a professional age. And some of the findings were, and this was not a formal study, and in fact it was buried in a NIOSH website for years because the NFL and the NFLPA back in that time weren't so sure they wanted to have the public understand some of the abnormalities that many of the players go through. And essentially, it showed that 52% of the linemen had a greater risk of dying from heart disease, and of those linemen, the bigger linemen had a 6 times greater risk than the normal-sized players, the non-linemen. But it was a lot of fun also. This shows Scott Perryman on the left, who is my stepson, and he organizes all of the details of the screening that allows this to happen. And in this case, Barry Sanders is next to Scott. He was one of the great running backs of all time, a small-sized running back at that. And this is a man that was called the Bus. His name is Bettis. He was from Pittsburgh, for all of you Steeler fans out there. Hey. He was a great player. And this is Teddy Bruschi. He's still on TV now. He played for the Patriots, was a linebacker, and believe it or not, at the end of his career, he detected at having a patent foraminal valley through which a paradoxical embolus occurred by transferring a small clot from the right side of the heart to the left. He had a non-invasive closure of that opening, recovered completely, and we still see him on TV currently as an announcer. The Minister of Defense is invisible. Can you see it on your slides? Well, I guess somehow that picture did not show up. But he was one of the great linemen for several teams, and he led, when he died, of sleep apnea, and there he is. And he was a focal point for bringing sleep apnea to the attention of the NFL and to the community at large thereafter. His name was Reggie White. And this is some of the data that came out of the Living Heart Foundation studies that indeed showed that the prevalence of sleep apnea was very high, approaching 50% in the retired player group, which is much higher than the general population. And this shows another of the problems that these big-sized players have, and that's cardiac enlargement and hypertrophy of the left ventricular muscle. We also look at the carotid arteries, and especially the inner lining of the carotid artery. And the thickness of that assessment is a good marker of cardiovascular disease in general. And we've used that to help guide a lot of the NFL players through the last 14 years. And this is a slide showing the concentration of all of the players at a teaching session. And if you can look in the doorway, if that shows on the screen, and a guy in a red tie looking in, that was me. And I always look to see if the players were getting the message and concentrating, and indeed, I think we were able to reach them and get them to consider the options that they needed to think about as they aged. And this, I think, is my last slide, and we've covered most of the information related to cardiovascular risk factors, nutrition, sleep apnea, and other health issues. So thank you, and I'm going to walk over and turn the program over to Corey and James, and you're in for a special treat.
How y'all doing? You guys here? We're pretty excited, so we're going to stand up. Almost like a little kid that got to go to the bathroom, but I really don't. I'm just excited to be here. And for you people in the back, you're fined $500 because you're late. And the ones that aren't here, we're going to fine them $1,000, right? You guys had that knockout. First, thank you to TOS and ASMBS for having us here. For our man, Mr. Buckwall, who, just so y'all know, come here for a second, Henry. We initiated Henry into the old lineman club today because Henry said that when he was a little kid, he was told to run behind the biggest people. But he said the play took too long, so he decided to do it on his own. And we said, God is good, because now you know how quarterbacks feel when we open up the barn door. And for Archie, for saving many men's lives at these screenings. You have no idea, and Corey will share, but in actuality, there are people who walk in and they're taken off to the hospitals immediately through the efforts of the Living Heart Foundation. So here's the deal. Some of y'all I tweeted, let you know about that beautiful private jet I thought I was going to get on. I got on that little plane, and you saw me sitting in that little baby chair at the kids section, because that's what economy seating feels like. So here's the first question. What's your passion? What you all do, you do it very well, and you do it every day. And sometimes you may think that you're doing it in a vacuum. And for the patients, We come to you, and in some instances, we think you're going to solve our problems. But what I will tell you is, to every patient that has walked through your office, through the hospital door, not only are we grateful, but there's a segment of us who decided that we were going to pay it forward. And I've met some of these people around the world. You don't have to be an athlete. We were just blessed. They blog, and they do true discipleship, which is, it's not a matter of just coming to this meeting and getting excited, but it's really about being there for the person when they have questions. So today, you're at the obesity buffet line. We're going to talk about a lot of different things, but at the end of the day, you put it in terms of what your passion is. And we're going to have a little fun, okay? But this is about you living through us and not about us. And this isn't about being called fat, being called big, being called lazy. This is about an issue that is not a one-size-fits-all, as you're going to learn. So let's get this party started. Here we go. Corey.
Yes, sir.
What's your relationship with food?
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. And it's been that way since I was born, literally. So, for some of you guys, you can probably find this hard to fathom, but I became a vegan 4.5 years ago. And the reason being, honestly, was because I was dying. I was literally dying. James and I joke, laugh, talk about these food shows, and folks, we used to sit around and laugh and talk and say, man, oh, I had a porterhouse for 2 last night. And I literally did, by myself. And I started thinking like, well, wait a minute, I've been doing this for 10, 15, 20 years, honestly, since I was drafted. You know, when I got a little bit of cash in my pocket, where I could go to Wolfgang's, Ruth Chris, Del Frisco's, okay? And we finally woke up and realized that, you know what, this is not funny anymore.
And I love ice cream. Any kind of ice cream, but really cheap, sugary ice cream. I grew up down south. Dairy Queen was my pit stop. Still is sometimes. Dr. Nora, you didn't hear that. She's my doctor. Dr. Flock, you didn't hear that. I know you're not here, so I don't have to worry about you. But every once in a while when I feel grown, I try to still have that cone, and, you know, and I get it taken care of. But you got to hear this story, because this sets the table for everything that these gentlemen were talking about when it comes to players and really our transitioning out of playing. Go for it, big fella.
Sure. So, as I stated, I became a vegan 4.5 years ago, technically 5. But pre-vegan days, let me take you on a journey. So as you see this picture here, we were always taught, you know, you got to eat, right? So it dawned on me that I had been trying to get to 300 pounds since I was the age of 15. And the reason being was because back then I was told, if you want to be a good offensive lineman, a good college offensive lineman, wasn't even thinking about pros, just college, you got to be a 300-pound lineman. So guess what? I literally ate, and I ate, and I ate. I remember the trips after practice, going to Hardee's, Pizza Hut, and quote-unquote clock drive-in, and then I would go home and eat more. At 15, I thought I hit a quote-unquote lottery, because I remember stepping on the scale for the first time going, 300. It was actually 301. At 15. 15, folks. So now you fast forward, and I'm now 35. I'm 340 pounds, playing in the league, retired, and it's starting to catch up with me. 35, 15. I've been 300 pounds since I was 15. I'm now 35, and I'm hitting that 340 mark. And it's going, and it's going, and it's going, and it's going, and it's going. And it's getting really, really scary. And it finally dawned on me one day how I actually got there. So my birthday is October the 10th. So I've always said, you know what, to keep things easy, as a good offensive lineman do, schedule what? Your physical, your major checkup on your birthday. So I go in, I see my doctor, and I knew I had gained some weight. I'm not gonna sit here and lie to you guys. But he told me, he was like, dude, I don't know what you're doing, but all of your numbers are up, okay? Cholesterol, diabetes, blood pressure, so on, so forth. Was I scared? Yes. But I really got scared because I sat down one day and I actually calculated exactly how many calories I was eating. And the reason I did that was because he told me, he was like, listen, you don't have to tell your clients or your friends what you're doing. Take your journal, stick it in your coat pocket. Every time you eat something, write it down. So again, as a smart offensive lineman would do, I took that journal out, and every time I would order some food, I would simply write it down. The only problem is I never took the time to actually tally it up until one day, about 3 months later, when I was having a pity party. And needless to say, I couldn't believe it because I'm counting, tallying, counting. I'm like, this can't be right. Like, there's no way. This can't be right. So I even go back and pull out a calculator and start recounting again. And now I'm sitting there scratching my head going, holy smokes, am I really consuming this much food a day?
So y'all ready?
And that number was
Human drum machine.
14,070 calories a day.
Hold up, and
No,
in
hold
case
on.
you didn't hear that, I can make it jump too. Right?
So let me tell you how I got to that 14th. I know, I'm looking at your face like there's no way. Let me tell you how I got to that 14,070 calories. If you remember, I said when I was 15, I was happy to get to what? 300 pounds. You fast forward, I'm now 35. I played in the league. And on average, believe it or not, the average offensive lineman, 14,000 calories is nothing. Because guess what? You're burning calories too. But the opposite, excuse me, but now at 35, I'm no longer playing, okay? So I'm eating. I'm very, very good at that. Not exercising, not working out, other than arm left, arm right, arm left, arm right. So it dawned on me that I got there because at 5 a.m. I was up. I was out literally hopping on the train. There was a bodega 2 minutes from my house. I would go in and I would literally order croissant, hear me good, bacon, egg, cheese, and a little orange juice. So the croissant alone was roughly 300 to 400 calories, all right? Tack on the bacon, the egg, and the cheese, and I'm literally sitting there holding a sandwich, because sometimes I would say extra cheese and extra bacon. I'm literally sitting there holding a sandwich that was roughly 1,000 calories. And I would finish that off, and I would drink my orange juice, and I would walk down, and I would hop on my train, and I'd go in to Grand Central, all right? And then I'm sure some of you guys should actually know this, but as soon as you get into the terminal, there's a clock, and then there's a sign out to the right. Let's say 2 o'clock, and it says hot and tasty. Folks, they knew me by my first name, all right? Because I would then proceed to go over and say, well, you know what? I'm going to get a healthy option now, which was lox, bagel, cream cheese. all right? If you're keeping tally, I started out with the croissant, the extra bacon, the extra egg, the extra cheese. It's now an hour and 20 minutes later. I've rode my little train in, and I go by and I get my bagel, my lox, my cream cheese. And to make it really, really good, I would say, you know what? I'm not gonna take a taxi today. I'm gonna walk to my office, because I gotta walk this off, right? I get into my office. You see that big McDonald's sweet iced tea? Worst thing that ever happened. Seriously, McDonald's started selling sweet iced tea in New York City. I will never forget the day, 2008, because I was celebrating. Not regular iced tea, sweet iced tea. Southern boy, country boy, love it. My secretary knew to have me not one, not two, but three in the office. So as soon as I walked in, one is sitting down. The other two are in the fridge. I go in, check some emails, make a phone call, drink my sweet iced tea. Most people got up to go do what? Take a smoke break. I got up to go downstairs and see what I could find. So now I'm kind of making myself feel good. I say, well, I'm gonna get some fruit. All right? Yeah, right. Because someone's always bringing in donuts, so on and so forth. Again, if you're keeping tally, what? Bacon, egg, cheese, salmon lox, fruit, sweet iced tea. Folks, it's 10 a.m. I promise you, by 10 a.m., I had already consumed 3,500 calories. And the party hadn't even started. Because guess what? I worked in the construction industry, okay? Business, development. All I did was entertain, take clients out, you name it, breakfast, lunch, dinner, 5 days a week. My credit card statement showed it, trust me. So on average, Del Frisco's on Mondays, Wolfgang's on Tuesdays, Capitol Grill on Wednesdays, Thursday was potluck, Fridays, who knows, might do them all. I would literally go to lunch, and I wasn't cracking jokes about this, I would go to lunch and sit across from a client and order a porterhouse for two by myself at lunch. And because it was an upscale restaurant, I couldn't get the sweet iced tea, right? Coca-Cola, all the sugar. So again, if you're keeping track, now it's lunch. I just had a porterhouse for two, Coca-Cola, not one. They've seen me, even now. I don't drink soda now, but even now, whatever I'm drinking, I drink a lot of. Guys, we had dinner last night. I bet you I had 10 glasses of ice water.
He's not the guy that you want sitting in the middle seat on a plane.
All right?
I'm just telling y'all that right now.
So I'm sitting at Capitol Grill, and I've literally consumed at lunch 8 to 10 Coca-Colas. Yes, I'm telling you, that's how I got to this 14,000 number. So that's half of the day, right? It's now 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. I then proceed to go back to my office. Don't forget, I still got 2 iced teas left. I get another one, I sip on it, I'm feeling good, happy hour's coming up, we go to the bar, we sit down, someone orders around, there's always some wings, some burgers, some sliders, gotta have the blue cheese. This was a day in the life of Corey Louchiey, okay? And I'm like, it's scary, folks, because I start shaking sometimes when I stop and think about, like, how in the world did I consume that much food and for so long, for all those years? So happy hour is over, and literally, I'm meeting with another client, and dinner is a repeat of lunch. Literally, a repeat of lunch. And depending upon how that meeting went, if it was good, I get on the train or I get my black car and I go home. And by the way, I lived out in Bronxville. So Bronxville by car was about an hour drive. I would hop on this train if I made that last train. And if the meeting went bad and I'm having a pity party, there's always something open in Grand Central late, right? So I might get a slice of pizza. But to top it all off, and this is when I knew I had a problem. To top it all off, I would go home and get a Tupperware bowl of Frosted Flakes.
So for y'all that watch the Beverly Hillbillies, he's the black version of Jethro Bodine.
So that's how I got to
big bowl.
14,070 calories. And trust me, on a lot of days, it was more than 14,070.
So you see in that title, The Power of Partnership. And this is a true story. I'm going to come to this side because, you know, I played the right side, and some people think people on the right side.
I played the left where all the money was at.
He stays on the left side. So here's the power of partnership. We're out at the University of Oregon, had a meeting with Nike, and we're watching Man versus Food. We're both foodies. Corey went downstairs, and there was a food truck. You know, Portland is food truck capital of the world. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. We didn't know nothing about, we knew barbecues, but not food trucks. Corey literally went around the world with the food trucks, came back up with this great review. And we drive down to the University of Oregon, and we had been told about a burger spot. Now, I really don't eat a lot of burgers, but this day, I was feeling good because they had great milkshakes. Always remember, the milkshake is my thing, ice cream. I ordered 3 doubles. I'm saying modest, right? Anything the size of my hand is cool. Got a size 12 hand, so it was cool. It's a big burger. And Corey's like, man, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to eat this, and I'll save the other one for the road to drive back up. And literally, I didn't know this, but my buddy says that after I ate the first burger, what happened, man? Because I was driving, and he literally told me to stop.
I looked at him, I said, ho, I thought those were for later. He was like, what? I said, you said you were buying those extra 2 for later. He didn't even realize it. He had literally finished those other 2 burgers off, balled the bag up, and tossed it, and chucked it, and sort of laughed. And I said, nah, bro, stop the car. We got a problem.
And so that's kind of like our come to Jesus moment. I told him that I had been looking into bariatric surgery as a way to get my health back. I had, a lot of injuries. I had gone through Guillain-Barré, put on 110 pounds on me that I couldn't get off, had to learn how to walk all over again. And so as a result, I told him that I was looking to the various procedures. And because I had never had any internal surgery, and so for the alums in the audience, y'all know where I'm coming from. The procedure, while you think laparoscopically is something that's fairly easy, non-invasive, y'all use all those buzzwords, right? Remember, I'm an offensive lineman. I'm going to research everything you say. And I'm like, man, they got essentially 5 skewers in me, and they're doing all this stuff. And my best friend had the old school bariatric surgery where, and so I'm a little scared. So literally, I say to him, man, I got to live, and I'm going to get this surgery. And then that's where he came with you got to say this, because I need to say my line, because this is the best line y'all going to hear of the afternoon. Tell him what you said when I said I'm going to get the surgery.
I said, well, I'm not a candidate for quote-unquote bariatric surgery, but I will become a vegan.
And I was like, a vegan? I'm like, bruh, you from Greenville, South Carolina. Y'all fry everything. I said, your mama would fry us if she could. I go, and how the hell are you? I go, Dick Gregory is the only black vegan I know, and he was almost dead at that time. And I literally looked at him. This is no joke. It sounds funny, but it was true. I'm like, dude, I don't know any vegans, man. I'm like, vegan? I'm like, punters and kickers do vegan stuff, not linemen. We can't do vegan. But guess what? My buddy looked me in the eye that night, and he said, dude, you're not going to do this alone. He goes, I'm going to figure this out. He goes, but you will not do this alone. And so that was the start. And so here you go. We're grazing, right? Looks pretty good. And he cooks. And he sends pictures, because, we are foodies. And he'll be like, yo, man, I got some lentils and red sauce. And I'm like, yo, Corey, I put some lentils in my salad now, too, right? And it's pretty good. And so you remember that big number that hopped and danced? Check it out now, folks. And literally, you know, as my friend, man, I always, you know, I never tell him enough, but I always remind him every day, because we don't see each other every day. This social media platform and the use of technology can be quite powerful for human interaction. And so as we talk to each other each day or every other day, I let him know how much I care about him, but we also remind each other that this thing is not over and it's far from being over, right? And so in our world, it's first down, you know. Hey, we're still marching down the field. We're both upright. As my old grandmother would, well, I shouldn't say old grandmother, as my young grandmother would say, it's better to be seen than viewed, right? So that's what we're about here. So my story is pretty simple. I tried to play football. I didn't play it very well. The last day of my getting cut from the Cowboys, I looked over and I saw these guys in these suits, and they had really nice cars. And as I'm just getting pounded to hell, I go, I'm on the ground, and I look over, and I'm like, what do those guys do? And they were like, oh, they work in the front office. And I was like, So I pursued, and it took a while, but I pursued a job with the National Football League, and I started over in London. And I've had really, we both have, led really like Forrest Gump kind of lives. Because through sports, we've been able to see and do a lot of things. More importantly, we've been able to affect a lot of people's lives, and unknowingly, and sometimes knowingly. And getting my partner in crime, you know, we saw Mark McCabe yesterday, and the good thing about being tall is you can always see the other tall person. You know, ain't that right, Henry? Yeah, exactly, see? Henry knows what it's about. And so the cool thing is that sports allows us to have a platform to be able to do things to affect folks, but you have no idea how much you affect us, too, especially when you get a willing person who's attentive. And so for me, I had a sleeve in 2011, and it went extremely well. Everything was going great. And in 2014, after returning from the Winter Olympics, I started contracting pneumonia about every 6 weeks, double pneumonia. And I spent a lot of time, by that time I moved from Connecticut out to Ohio State University, out to Columbus, so I was going to OSU, and I ran into my doctors there, and I went through a plethora of doctors over the next 18 months, and they found out I had cryptococcal pneumonia, which took a year to clear up, and then they had found that I actually needed a revision on, not even a revision, they had to just go in and do a Roux-en-Y, and I negotiated on the size of my pouch. Thank you, Dr. Norrie, I appreciate that, because I still believe the size of a walnut just was not going to get it, and I did get a tennis ball, right? So again, alums, more power to us, because we can't call our own shots sometimes. You just got to try. And so my second surgery occurred in December 2016, and I had a couple more revisions. But more importantly, it saved my life actually a third time. Because in 2009, July 7th, I died twice in a day from blood clots in my lungs that each moment, 12 hours apart, passed through my heart and didn't lodge. So to say that I'm actually here from a divine perspective is an understatement. But why we're really here is to be here to talk to you. And there's a question that we're now down south, we call it sitting on the porch, and we're going to have a conversation. No kicking the dog, no getting mad, but this is really from a patient's perspective on what you all do. And on any good team, what are we not allowed to do, bro? Can't complain, right?
No, not at all.
You'll be running all day. So for everything that's going to be brought to your attention, we're offering a solution, at least our solution. And it's just food for thought. Because at the end of the day, this is about helping you all in your quest to help us help ourselves. This says it all. Sit at the table with winners, and the conversation is totally different. There's a lot of peer-to-peer conversations on both sides, but rarely is there an interaction of the two sides, or three sides, or four sides, or five sides, because we got that thing called integrative medicine. Yeah, I've seen a lot of those flyers, know all about it, okay? And the conversation we're about to have will really stem on this. I love my man Joe Naglowski and the people at OAC for the work that they do. But let me tell you, when James Zevros, my other little twin, calls me, he goes, man, what do you think about Brent Musburger calling that guy fat at the Auburn-Alabama game when the Alabama guy couldn't tackle the Auburn guy after the missed field goal, and they ran it back for a touchdown for you football fans? And James is like, what do you think about that? I go, well, first of all, he's a lineman, and if the guy gets ahead of me by 5 yards, it's a wrap. I'm just going to jog my way, and I can conveniently trip by him not catching a running back who's running the ball back. But more importantly, the word fat in our line of work, think about this. It's an oxymoron. Because when the coach goes, hey, move your fat ass, it's not about literally move your fat ass. It is a call to action. And if we're so fat, no one watches one of the world's most televised sports, because I used to sell programming in 18 countries, countries that didn't even know about American football, but they were willing to buy it. No one says, oh, look at those morbidly obese guys running around the field. Oh, my God, I hope they don't have a heart attack. And look at the big dude. He's coming out here, and his shirt is like up here. What's up with him? People are going, block, run, hit. So TV is our friend. TV is obesity's friend. We got to flip the script, people. Alums been out there flipping the script for a long time. Because the first thing we say is, yeah, we got a new body, but it doesn't change the person. I'm the same guy at 505 that I am now. He's the same guy. What you weighing now, bro?
269.
269.
From 425.
425. He was born at 200. I was born at 225. Right? 269. Bias in the medical industry. I really thought about this because I've been following what's been happening during the week. I'm a voracious reader. Here's the way I flip that. For anyone that's over the size of what I call, I don't even know what average human being in any world can fit in any hospital gown these days. But man, I told Corey, I was like, bruh, do you not remember that we were wearing the gowns as like cloths? We wouldn't even try to put it over. I go, because all this would be swinging out. So we've never seen hospital gowns. Literally, it sounds crazy, but you have to understand something. When you live this, you make adjustments because you have to continue with life. And so I guess all I'm here to say is, first of all, thank you for this very comfortable seat, because this is the biggest seat I've had in a long time. And actually, I can move around now, and my butt don't hit the sides, and it's all good, right? But the things that we are focusing on, while they need to continue, the focus still boils down to the individual's mindset. I paid a lot of money for my psychological profile before I was ever able to get bariatric surgery. In doing that, I already knew I was going to pass. I've had 300-pound men laying on me all day long for a long time, and I'm not even that good. I knew I wanted this. There are people who know they want it, they don't know how to get it. They not only need your help, they need our help. They need their help. because ultimately, we've been on this journey before. And thanks to this society, we came here in 2013. This is us in New Orleans. Henry was trying to get an offensive lineman club. We didn't let him back in there back then. You know, he was trying. But we started this journey in 2013 and continued it. Last year, we spoke at Ohio State. I speak around the world. We'll speak to people at gas stations. I spoke to somebody outside the hotel yesterday because this disease is an epidemic, has to be dealt with from a discipleship perspective. I teach one teaches three, that one teaches three more, and so on and so on and so on. So the information flow and the availability of information, hey, you guys are doing a tremendous job getting it to us. But where it overwhelms the end user is that they don't know how to process it because we all think at different levels and at different speeds. I'm dyslexic, so I'm very visual. I'm great with numbers. Corey, tell them what you grew up with, bro.
Stuttering, speech impediment, which ultimately led to what? Learning, quote unquote, disability. No, I was a smart kid. I finished high school, graduated from college, masters and everything else. But it just shows you how people will lump you in a box.
And that's what we're fighting with your help. So here we go. We're now inside the team meeting, and we're going to get a scouting report. And the great thing about scouting reports is it's essentially strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats analysis of your next opponent. And in this instance, it's obesity. And the word afraid, while not used in our sport, we call it audibles. Because essentially, something's going wrong, you run off the field, you're scared as hell, and the coach goes, all right, let's huddle up and let's figure this out. There's sometimes a dictatorship, sometimes, it's a democracy. But when we step out, it's on one accord. So as our friends today, we're going to pose some questions to you, four simple ones. What will it take? So as a patient, what it took for me was navigating the world of integrative bariatrics. It wasn't daunting for me because, again, I'm going to make it work and I'm going to figure it out. But for the average person, it's a scary proposition. And from a physician's perspective, support staff, quality managers within the hospital systems, it's an even scarier proposition because you've got KPIs and everything else you're trying to meet. Only can see patients for so long, got to see so many patients at a time. All of a sudden you ask me, hey, how you feeling or what happened to you? Oh man, you better get some popcorn. 22 knee operations, all my fingers broke, artificial thumb, artificial right hip, 8 concussions. And that's just a start before I talk about the internal stuff. So I've got to navigate this map. And at the end of the day, the systems are centers of excellence, but in football terms, we have 2 ways to grow teams. We grow them organically through draft choices, or we spend and we bring in the best players for the short period of time to get the immediate wins. Some of y'all know what I mean. But for a patient, this is the scariest thing they could go through. So, what we started doing was figuring out we could leverage our ability to deal with comprehensive weight management, understand business, definitely understand branding, because we're walking billboards. Now, we don't put stuff on our backs and we don't have the signs, the sandwich board signs, but hey, if you don't think I'm not a walking billboard for quote unquote obesity, yes I am, because still according to the BMI scale, I'm what? Obese. But for those of you that were in the gym this morning, and I saw a few, and y'all saw me crank out that 15-degree incline for an hour and then go lift and then put my leg above my head and stretch, hey man, I'll be fat like this all day long. But here's what we're saying. There are people out there like ourselves who want to help you. And the last point on the value add is the most important, because at the end of the day, you're fighting from a system perspective. How do I increase exposure? How do I make this work? How do I fund? How do I get the new theater? How do I, someone tells me we got to put you in a new part of the hospital, and maybe it's not level 1 trauma. Guess what? We know people. We know people who know people. You need to fundraise. You need to capital raise. And there are other alums out there like that who have a social reach, social media reach, a call to action. They know how to motivate people. But more importantly, what we have to do is understand that from a business alignment perspective, it's going to meet everything that gets sent to me as a patient. And the one thing I really hate is that 22-page patient experience survey with the little SAT bubbles, and you can't cross them, and you got to stay inside the circle. I'm like, Lord, please, can somebody just call me and ask me if it was a good experience? And KPIs. For once, how about having your patient go, oh, wow, there was a person that walked me through alpha to omega on this thing, and they were able to direct me to the right person within the organization, which is you. And now you can focus on what you need to do, which is do your job and do it very well, which is what you do without the extraneous pressures. Networking builds awareness. All these people in these photos know about my journey. Magic Johnson was the first guy to talk to me as a friend, because when I was 505, I used to sweat all the time. And I'd be looking good. I always said I wasn't a sloppy 505, but I was 505 pounds. And he pulled me to the side at a conference, and he said, man, I'm worried about your health. We saw Magic at the last NBA All-Star game. And he's like, man, that's awesome. How do I get involved? Right? LeBron James, Akron, Ohio. Rust Belt. Trying to help kids fight childhood obesity because they live in food deserts. John Lynch, now the new president and GM of the San Francisco 49ers, was one of my crew members on the NFL on Fox. Good dude. Corey Louchiey. Joan London. We go to Neil Flock's Walk from Obesity, and by the way, we got to really change that name, because we're not walking from anything because we're living it. Let's do something a little bit more proactive. Leaders. Nike. Called them up, told them I was doing the walk, and I need a product. And they were like, how much do you need? See, folks, there are a lot of people out there, they don't know the answer either, but they're willing to be involved. Mark McCabe called him up, say, hey, man, need bariatric fusion, step up, send me some stuff. Didn't blink an eye. It's his market. He understands. You understand. So we got to build this awareness. Am I ready to fail? Hell no. Every patient will tell you, you're going to help prepare me. You're going to help me set my goals. But in the meantime, I'm just getting all this paper. Or I'm being sent to a website that says, oh, just hit resources and they'll tell you everything you need to know. And I'm going, no, stop the madness. No, I don't understand that. And so what I did was I flipped it and said, you know what? When I walk into the doctor's office or into the hospital, into any of those departments, I'm already going to know what to do. And how powerful would that be to be able to tell a new person that has committed themselves to the surgery? Am I committed? Now, this is the money one. You ready? TOSS, ASMBS, health systems, you guys, pharmas, the surgical supply industry, thank you for all the support. But here's something really, really funny. I sat in my hospital room for 18 months, every 6 weeks with this pneumonia. Doctors would come in, and this is only half the doctors that I dealt with at Ohio State, all of them my friends, and the question would be, how are you? And the longer your coat, the shorter the question. Y'all know what I mean. See, I did learn a lot, didn't I? And I'm sitting here going, who are you? And did you not talk to the last person? And everybody's coming in doing their notes. And remember, I got all these injuries, right? So I'm like, oh, hell no. We can figure this out. Because you need your questions answered, and so do I. Patients, we need our questions answered too. So I called a timeout. I looked around the room. There are boards in hospital rooms all over the place, dry boards, and no one knows how to use them. I was like, oh no, because here's what I know I can do. I can get up, I can have my girlfriend, or I can have the nurse write down something that was key to me during that day. And when people would come in to ask me, how are you doing? I go like this, if I wasn't too high to do that. And if I was like this, they knew to look at the board. And the first day was actually the hardest because, you know, surgeons, man, they're rock stars. They are the quarterbacks. And remember what we said. Offensive linemen, we know how to control quarterbacks too. It's called swing the barn door open. You get in your stance, and what do you do, bro? And then you walk back and be like, yo, sorry, man, my bad. Let me help you up.
Look out.
So for my surgeon friends, when they started talking about all these procedures they're doing, I'm saying, can you please just draw me a real simple sketch? And you know what? Y'all love to sketch. That's one thing I did find out. So I would get sketches on my board too, that now I can review, and I got a point of reference. At 211 degrees, water boils and it's warm. This is a great quote. At 212 degrees, it becomes hot enough that it can turn a turbine in terms of power. It's that one extra degree that turns something that's kind of warm and comfortable to something that makes a difference. This, my friends, I know you spend a lot of money, but man, if you want a good board session for your patients, it is the best tool in a patient's room. It helps everyone. I'm gonna turn it over now to my friend because as my partner, Corey didn't go through the surgery. But this is where he impacts me and others all day long.
So, again, thank you guys for letting us share. Now we're going to wrap it up, but I set a goal 2 years ago to run 1,000 miles. I actually did it in 10 months. Thank you. The irony is, in running that 1,000 miles, my knees and my ankles and my back started bothering me. So then my doctor said, you know what? Buy a bike. So I bought a bike January 1st, and I set a goal this year to actually ride 10,000 miles. Year to date, I'm at roughly 8,600, so I will get there, promise you. I'm saying all that to just say this. Partnership, people, power of partnerships. This right here, this has changed my life. I didn't know I was gonna become a vegan, trust me, 5 years ago, all right? But this right here, this man right here has helped change my life. I mean it from the bottom of my heart. And I'm telling you guys right now that you can help change people's lives too.
And ultimately, you know what it boils down to with all the technology is still human interaction. So remember how we started the conversation with you about this discipleship and touching people and exponentially helping them. You can have all the technology in the world, but at the end of the day, if somebody doesn't have a phone a friend, it's useless. And more importantly, human interaction is a great way to reinforce the things that you want us to do as patients. And not from a compliant perspective, not from scaring us, because hell, we can scare ourselves, trust us. I mean, there's enough we can think in our own mind not to get the surgery. But there's a call to action that can actually occur, and it really boils down to this. We figure out a way how to work together, herd the programs, leverage the Q rating of sports. And this is one thing I do know from traveling around the world. I've watched Olympic Games stop wars for the duration of the Olympics. Then people go back beating the hell up out of each other. I've watched myself sit with neo-Nazis in Berlin and have a beer, and at the end agree to disagree. I've watched my buddy and I come from families where people sometimes told us we wouldn't be anything or even called us fat. And I've watched myself wake up in the mornings with my feet hurting even before they touch the ground, and my knees killing me, and my back hurting, and my hands swollen from all the fluid retention. And you guys helped me. Directly or indirectly, you helped me. But there's an alum audience out there of people that for as much as y'all say thank you to each other, please say thank you to them, because those young ladies, we ain't got enough guys, but we're working on it, who blog, it does help. But being the banker that I am, I look at the opportunity pool. So there's people that found it out. But if obesity is the epidemic that we know it to be, it really is about reaching the ones who are unsaved, unknowing, or unsure. And not everybody's poor and can't afford it. We have more conversations with people who want to learn how to get the surgeries because they're self-payers. So it really is food for thought for all of us. So once again, if you don't mind, stand up. We would like to actually give you a round of applause for the work that you're doing. So y'all got to stand up now, and now y'all get to get embarrassed, all right? So everybody just stand up for a second, please. Come on, man. Geez, this is like my family reunion, all right? Thanks so much, and God bless.
Thank you.
What a wonderful panel.
Way to go, man.
We want to thank these mighty men for bringing attention to a neglected issue, obesity in men. They are mighty in body, in mind, and certainly in heart. Please join them in the exhibit hall today for Obesity Week backstage so you can meet them, take some photos with them. I hope you enjoy the rest of the meeting, and thank you all very much.